Look like she's eating too much birthday cake.
I did eat too much the last
Your
couple
birthday
days.
today?
No, it was Sunday, but my
happy
children and
birthday.
my husband and I were in DC and we ate through the town for like the last
That's
4
such a good place to eat there.
Good food.
Hey, it should be there. Hey, Chris, do you mind going and logging on somewhere and just making sure that we are live streaming? It says we're in a practice session.
So no wonder poor David couldn't get in.
I'm trying to figure where to start webinar. Oh, sorry, we had a last minute issue.
Are we restricted from having?
No,
We've said we are gonna do it.
There it is.
I don't think so. That would be a legal question. We got that.
I'm gonna get the candies.
Okay,
We're good.
you're good.
All right, I call to order the meeting of the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors. It's 5:39. I apologize for the delay. We had some technical difficulties. Randy, you take roll, please.
Supervisor Lewis,
Present.
Supervisor Day,
Here.
Supervisor Ayers, here, Supervisor McDaniel,
Here.
and Chairman Lyons.
Here. At this time, we'll have an invocation followed by the pledge for those who want to join. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support. As we begin this meeting, help us to work together and make meaningful decisions. We ask this through your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would ask that everyone project your voices as much as you can, so good vibes can.
Per the Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Executive Order 72, persons who have been fully vaccinated for the COVID-19 virus are not required to wear a mask. We'll hold citizen comments near the beginning of the meeting. We'll do our best to take citizens' comments remotely. There are 2 options for citizens to offer comments. To join by phone, you may dial into one of the numbers listed on the county website. Webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will use the raise your hand feature. You can press the raise your hand button at the bottom of your Zoom window or press *9 if you're calling in by phone. Are there any changes to the agenda? We have one to add potential acquisition of real property to the closed session.
Yes.
Okay. Any other changes? None. The agenda will stand as amended. All right, under recognitions and presentations. Mr. Bolster.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. If you go to your board docs packet, you'll see a couple of attachments. One is a press release from the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, and the other is the certificate for Certificate of Achievement in Excellence for Excellence in Financial Reporting. So just a couple highlights from the press release. Our audit from last fiscal year, so June 30th, 2020, was submitted to the GFOA for their evaluation for this recognition. They had an impartial panel evaluate all submissions, and we were fortunate to be selected to achieve this recognition. This is our 6th year in a row. It is a team effort, so I do want to give credit to folks like Julie Weitzel, Amy Milliner, Stefan Janjic, Betty Travato, and then there's personnel with the school division, with the landfill, with the jail, DSS, plus our external auditors. They help us out with trying to meet the standards of the GFOA. And so just to let you guys know, congratulations on getting recognized for the 6th year in a row.
Well, congratulations, Mr. Bolster. I'm sure you played a major part in it too. So we appreciate all you do. Citizens' comments. Is there anyone signed up to speak? Okay. Is there anyone online that wishes to speak?
No, sir.
And we received any electronic communications?
Not specifically for citizen comments. No.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll look to approve the minutes from 9/20/21. That's the and the last board meeting minutes from 10/12/21. Has everyone had a chance to review them?
So moved?
Motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And a second. Okay, Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
and the chair votes yes. Consideration of the school appropriation resolution. Mr. Bolster?
Yes, sir. If you go to your board doc package, you'll see that there's an appropriation resolution for some new grant funding that the school division has received. A couple of weeks ago, the school board was presented a similar appropriation resolution, and they adopted it. So the recommendation is to approve the appropriation resolution for new grants totaling $1,970,828. And I'm available if there's any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Bolster? Hearing none, you've heard his request for approval.
So moved.
Have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. All right, the consideration of the appropriation resolution for Holes Drive-In capital contribution.
If you go to your board docs package, you'll see there's an agenda item. So just to recap what happened 2 weeks ago, the staff provided an update to the board on Holes Drive-In request to contribute $50,000 towards their Saves Hole capital campaign. The finance committee evaluated it for a couple meetings and came back with a recommendation to contribute up to $30,000. If that's what the ultimate decision of the full board was. It's just some additional information that is in the agenda item. So the campaign started in February 21. The fundraising target was $350,000. They had until September 1st to exercise the option to purchase the land, which they did in early October. The full purchase price was $442,500. And so the campaign continues because there is a bridge loan that was completed to get to the full amount. In a subsequent meeting on October 15th by the Finance Committee, Supervisors McDaniel and Lewis discussed another option, and that's the potential to exempt Holes Drive-In Theater from real estate taxation. And it's an option under code. Of course, Holes would have to apply for that request. And so we did some math on that. Ms. Huffman calculated that the overall real estate tax per year would be $3,688.16. So it would take over just a little bit over 8 years to get the same value of what the recommendation was of the Finance Committee, which was up to $30,000. Of course, that if the exemption was approved, that would continue beyond moving forward. And so we've got a couple recommendations. One is to direct staff or a board delegate to discuss the tax exemption alternative with Holes representatives and report the results of the conversation back to the board, or to reaffirm the decision on the 12th of October to fund up to $30,000 towards the capital campaign. And that's the decision to direct staff on the actual amount desired and return to the board at the first November meeting to do the actual appropriation.
My understanding, or my thought is, as this possibility came up, that we'd go with option A and ask Spencer or somebody to talk to Holes and see what their plans might be. I think it's a better option for them to have the tax exempt status if that was something we wanted to do. So before we go too far with that, though, I thought, we should check to see if that's an interest of theirs. So that would be my part of the finance committee thought. And I think David would agree, but I certainly don't want to speak for him.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yeah, I believe it would be a better result for polls to have them apply for the exemption and move forward with that rather than the upfront donation.
Is there anyone that disagrees with that?
Nope.
Would Mr. Suter be a good one to reach out?
Yes, sir. I have discussion. I can have additional discussions with them
And then we'll hear back in November. All right, the reimbursement resolution for the Floyd SK renovation project.
So just to repeat some stuff from the past, we know the boards have been in discussion about renovating the Floyd SK Technical Education Center for the past 3 to 6 months. And so there was an update to the board on the 16th. And then there was a follow-up at the September 27th work session to further consider the study, the feasibility study and the results associated with the VOTEC building. So at the last meeting, it was the board authorized the school division to use their school carryover account to fund the initial schematics and design portion of the project. And so with that, I've been in works with our bond counsel to develop a reimbursement resolution in support of this project. That reimbursement resolution is attached in your board docs package. I've had a chance to review it along with Mr. Suter and Ms. Huffman. And so I'm available to answer any kind of questions that may come up. But if you are in agreement to adopt the reimbursement resolution, we ask that you would consider doing that.
Any questions for Mr. Bolster? So basically, we're making sure that we can get paid back.
That's
if the
correct.
project is through. All right, do I hear a motion?
So move.
Do we have a second?
Second?
And a second. All right, Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Ms. Ayers.
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolster. Mr. Flint, you're going to talk to us about White's Travel Center Performance Agreement.
Included in your packages this evening is the performance agreement and the corresponding resolution for the incentive package for White's Travel Center. It is something you approved last month along with the EDA. I would just give you a brief update. I did speak with Mr. Bergchester. Mr. Bergchester construction is slated to be completed in April, and they've already hired the 2 supervisory positions. So we're moving forward with that. This will memorialize the agreement, and the EDA did approve it last week as well. Questions?
Questions?
I move we approve.
A motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
Ms. Ayers.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you, Ms. Flint. All right, the adoption of the FY '23 budget schedule and funding priorities.
You may recall at the last meeting, we reviewed the budget schedule for FY '23 and also the funding priorities. We did ask that if there were any kind of inputs, that would be communicated to Supervisors Lewis and McDaniel. We did meet in a follow-up meeting on the 15th as a finance committee, and there were no adjustments to what was presented on the 12th. So what you see tonight is what you saw a couple weeks ago. I'm available to answer any kind of questions or take any other inputs that may occur tonight. But if you're in agreement with the proposed drafts, both the schedule and the funding priorities, the request is to consider adopting that.
Any questions? Do we have a motion to adopt? So moved. Do we have a second?
Second?
And a second. All right. Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Ayers?
Yep.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Day? And the chair votes yes.
Thank you.
Consideration to adjust the effective date of the cigarette tax. Mr. Suter.
Yes, on August 23rd, the board adopted a 25 cent per pack on tax on the sale of cigarettes in the county. The effective date was January 1st, 2022, upcoming. In prior meeting, staff and the Commissioner of Revenue had all indicated that lead time of approximately 6 months would be ideal to complete all necessary steps to implement that tax. We also at that time indicated, you may recall, that we might need to come back to you since there was not quite that amount of time there. Procurement of the stamps is underway, and based on various challenges and after consultation with Commissioner Weitzel, who is with us this evening, staff's requesting additional time to implement the tax be approved in order to ensure a smooth transition. Mr. Weitzel has requested that if a new effective date is approved, that it be set for the start of the fourth quarter of the fiscal year, which would be more ideal for his office. Additionally, as you know, over the past several weeks, the town of Goshen Town Council has considered implementation of the tax, but has not yet taken action. And Glasgow Town Council has implemented a 1 cent cigarette tax. This would allow additional time for coordination with those towns on the processes and collection. If the board's amenable to an extension, an ordinance will be required to codify the change. And Ms. Huffman has drafted such an ordinance. The request would be that you approve advertisement of that for the next meeting. If you are, approve the extension.
Any questions for Mr. Suter? I just have one. If Glasgow's going to collect a 1 cent per pack tax, so we don't have to be involved with that at all, correct?
1 cent per pack or per cigarette?
Per pack.
Yeah, I thought it was per pack. Okay, so, but that's their thing to deal with. Okay. All right. You've heard the request to Scott.
Maybe we might want to ask Commissioner Weitzel. Did you want to comment to that at all?
Directly other than their attorney. But I've got a feeling they're going to ask us to administer that.
Then how can we pay for it at 1 cent per pack? How can you?
But they're going to have to buy their own stamps. And my understanding from their attorney was she talked to me the day after this passed. And they weren't aware that they had to provide their own stamps. They thought that the county was going to provide them with the stamps. Because I asked her, I said, when you implement this 1 cent of tax, how's that going to pay for your overhead? And she said, well, what overhead? And I said, well, to start with, buying the stamps. We thought the county would provide us with those. Now, if you're going to implement your own tax. And then she asked me about administering it. And we had a conversation, one of the conversations with Goshen was that if they pass the tax, I don't know that we have a choice. I mean, I'm their commissioner of revenue as much as I am a citizen of the county. So if they want us to administer it, then I don't think I have the authority to say no.
I don't know.
I can't speak for Glasgow, but I have had conversations with Goshen council members and mayors, and that's why they're holding off, was to get all these questions answered. So I hope that Glasgow may relook at that question once we get more information, which is also part of I think Mr. Weitzel's wise request to push the implementation date back just a bit is my take. on it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
But if that's his request, again, I certainly support pushing it back. So
So is that a motion?
I move that we approve it.
Well, you're
Approve the
approving a public hearing.
public hearing?
Yes, that's
Yeah, and we have a second
Second?
and a second. All right. Mr. Lewis,
aye.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. The opioid
Mr.
litigation.
Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I would just ask that whether it's the Commissioner of Revenue or the County Administrator, they reach out to the town of Glasgow with proper instructions as to what their cost will be. And it's not that the county is going to fund that for them.
Yes, sir. I'm happy to do that. I have sent some emails to Glasgow Town Manager, and I will follow that up with a phone call.
Thank you. Let me know if I can be of any assistance.
Okay.
Ms. Huffman,
Sir,
the opioid litigation settlement.
I'll try to be more brief than I was in my report that I posted. It was pretty extensive. I was using information that had been provided by outside counsel. But to provide a more general report, the excuse me, the three largest pharmaceutical distributors, McKesson Corp, Cardinal Health, and Amerisource Bergen, as well as the manufacturer Janssen Pharmaceuticals and its parent company, Johnson & Johnson, have reached agreement on global settlements that promise to provide up to $26 billion in value nationwide. That proposed settlement is structured to encourage participation by the localities nationwide. The more participation they have in the settlement, the higher the amount will be. The premise is that if someone participates, they will sign a release for further liability, making that pot of funds available to those who sign the release, but retaining a certain amount in escrow to cover those who do not participate and could represent a potential liability separate from the settlement. So that's the basis for the rather broad numbers at this point. It's difficult to know exactly what the amount will be until they are sure how many will participate in the settlement and how the settlement funds will be broken down. Our outside counsel, Sanford Heisler Sharp, Kaufman and Knowles, and the Sikala law firm have recommended that their local government clients participate in the settlement. They feel like it will be more beneficial to their client localities to go ahead and settle, receive the funds, and be able to use them for the purpose intended, rather than drawing the process out even further and incurring additional expenses in litigation and attorney's fees and et cetera, et cetera. The settlement also includes a portion of funds as part of the MPL where those participating localities' attorney's fees will be covered through that fund. So it will not be a straight off the top of the settlement amount for the county. So I think that, let's see, the Virginia share of the settlement, whatever that ends up being, is 2.2801150.757% of the millions expected to come to Virginia. And it will be administered through the MOU with the Attorney General that you've previously approved. So with that, I'll stop and ask if you have any questions. I'll try to answer.
You concur with the recommendation?
Sir?
You concur with the
I
recommendation?
do.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Any questions for Ms. Huffman? Heard her recommendation. Do we have
I move we approve.
a motion to approve? Do we have a second?
A second?
And a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Ayers,
Aye.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Thank you, Ms. Huffman. At this time, we'll move to our public hearings. Mr. Slayton?
Right, we have three public hearings for the Office Committee, three public hearings for the Office of Community Development this evening. The first one being JBLN Investments proffer amendment. So bear with me here. I'm going to do a brief presentation and turn the floor over to Brazel Hamrick. All right. Again, the first public hearing we have is for JBL Investments LLC proffer amendment. The property is located on the east side of the privately owned portion of Thoroughbred Circle, tax map number 62-33-22, and is owned by JBLN Investments LLC. Consists of 8.608 acres and per tax records is conditionally zoned R2. The most recent rezoning process was a proffer condition amendment in January of 2021. As far as the current proffer amendment, the current plan that's associated with the January rezoning requires substantial compliance with a plan dated January 12th, 2021, included 25 single-family lots, 4 single-family dwellings. The proposed plan has been revised to have an update revision date of September 15th, 2021, and changes the 25 single-family dwellings into 27 lots with a total of 5 two-family dwellings, duplexes, and 17 single-family dwellings. The proposed plan makes changes only to the lots that are served by Triple Crown Lane. There's no change to the acreage, open space, or exterior property lines. So with this, just very briefly to review the proposed changes, I'm going to try to use my pointer options as a laser pointer. This is the January 12th, 2021 rezoning plan. And the primary change or the change that's under consideration tonight, this was the Triple Crown Lane that was served to be 25 single-family dwellings. And then as far as the proposed change that's under consideration this evening, it's still served by Triple Crown, but there are 5 duplexes, being number 1, where my pointer is now, 2, 3, goes to a single-family row of single-family dwellings until you hit the 4th duplex unit, and then the 5th is on the north side of Triple Crown Lane. So at the October 13th, 2021 Planning Commission, they held the public hearing and has recommended approval of the proffer amendment with the acceptance of the proffer statement. With that, I'd like to turn it over. I can keep on sharing this, but turn the floor over to Brazel Hamrick. He is the landowner in this case and the engineer on the project.
Thank you, Chris. And Mr. Chairman, Board of Supervisors, Brazel Hamrick, 156 Laurel Hill Road, Roanoke, Virginia. I don't have a whole lot more to add from what Chris said. Basically just trying to mix in some duplexes with some single family. And to continue to provide a nice, affordable housing.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open the public hearing.
Let me, bear with me here. Let me stop sharing this. Go back to the regular screen. There is no one physically signed up to speak. And I can check online. There,
Unless Mr. Smith is,
yeah, no one attendee, Mr. Smith, and there are no questions and answers, and there are no open chats as far as questions. With that, we'll turn it back over to the chair.
All right, then at this time, we will close the public hearing. Any comments from the board?
Did Mr. Hamrick say his address is Roanoke?
Verona.
Okay, all right, okay.
No discussion? Are there any motions?
I move we approve.
Have a motion to approve
I'll second.
and a second. All right. Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes.
Next up is a similar neighborhood, similar faces. This one is for AKB development, which is just around the bend, so to speak of, from the previous proffer amendment. And this is the same application. This is a similar application, I should say, from AKB. AKB Development, LLC, proffer amendment. The property is located on the north side of the private portion of Thoroughbred Circle. And this one's associated with tax map number 62-A-45. In this case, the property is owned by AKB Development LLC, and the total property of 62-A-45 consists of 32.041 acres per tax records. This is also conditionally rezoned on two fronts. The one that's under consideration this evening was rezoned in February of 2009 with a proffered plan to develop 5 multifamily units with 8 units each, so a total of 40 units. This is the proffered plan. The original proffered plan proposed the proffer amendment that's under consideration this evening. His proposal is to remove the associated proffers associated with the 4.35 acre portion of property. The contract purchaser plans to develop a 15.621 acre portion of property into a 35 lot cluster subdivision for single family dwellings. The current action item is the removal of the proffered conditions only pertaining to the 4.35 acres. So, got ahead of myself. So this actually shows what this slide attempts to do is shows the proposed plan with 35 single family dwellings with some open space associated on the east side and open space associated with west side. This is, of course, the very northern section of Thoroughbred Circle. And so what the outline in red here is attempts to show is where the 4.35 acres is in relationship to this overall development and then the 32 acre portion. So again, if you see this side, this is going to be, using my pointer one more time, this is going to be the associated 4.35 acres outlined here with the corner of it being the 40 units. So again, that same outline is associated on this red outline here. As far as the Planning Commission, on October 13th, 2021, the Planning Commission held its public hearing and recommended approval of the proffer amendment application to remove the proffers associated with the earlier 2009 rezoning for multifamily dwellings. With that, I will keep this display up and again turn it over to Brazel Hamrick. In this case, I think it's correct statement. Brazel is a co-owner in this LLC and is the developer or is the engineer on the project. With that, I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Hamrick.
Mr. Chairman, Board, Brazel Hamrick, 156 Laurel Hill Road, Verona, Virginia. And yes, I am one of the 3 partners in AKB Development. One of the partners who is deceased had proposed those apartments back whenever the date was that Chris gave you all. And we have since been approached by another developer that wants to do this 36 lot subdivision, just in a continuation of exactly what AKB has been doing out there. And so I'm just here this evening to kind of clean the board a little bit. To allow that to happen.
Thank you.
Here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Oh, thank you. Any discussion? Any motions? Oh, sorry. We've got to open the public hearing
I've got
first.
one, but I'll wait till after the public hearing.
All right, I'm gonna stop sharing this for a second. We can, of course, bring that back up. There's no one physically signed up to speak. Let me go on. There's no attendees. There's one attendee, Mr. Smith. But with that being said, there are no open questions and there do not appear to be any chats. With that, I'll turn the floor to the chair.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Any discussion among the board? Any motions?
With the planning commission's recommendation, I move we approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And a second. All right, Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes.
All right, the third and final public hearing we have is for Autumn Ridge Cottages LLC, a special exception to operate a lodge in the agricultural zoning district. As far as the property details, the property is located on the east side of Old Farm Road, owned by Autumn Ridge Cottages LLC. Tax map number is 75-12-7B and consists of 39.335 acres per tax records. Again, located in the agricultural and general use district A2. Currently operating as a bed and breakfast inn with 3 dwellings used for short-term rentals. Per the special exception permit itself, Heather and Mike Meads, owner of Autumn Ridge Cottages LLC, have applied for a special exception permit to operate a lodge and resort in the A2 zoning district. Per section 603.03-1 of the land development regulations, lodge or resorts are used by special exception in the A2 zoning district. Applicant has proposed to renovate an existing barn into an additional single-family dwelling for a fourth short-term rental unit. In doing so, require a special exception to permit LDR section 302.128 as defined as a lodge. The barn has previously been used as a goat yoga studio and currently supplied with water, sewer, and electric. As far as the Planning Commission recommendation, on October 13th, 2021, the Planning Commission held its public hearing and has recommended approval of the special exception permit application with the following conditions. Number 1, substantial compliance with the site map dated October 8th, 2021. That is the map that was associated with your package showing the existing rental units and the proposed fourth short-term rental. Number 2, rental units shall be used only for short-term rental only. And number 3, approval contingent upon county building department, erosion and sediment control, stormwater management, and the Department of Transportation and Public Service Authority Health Department approvals. With that, there is one, before I turn the floor over to Mr. Mike Meads, co-owner of Autumn Ridge LLC, there is one slight change to the ordinance that Ms. Huffman has prepared. Throughout the process, we have used 126 Autumn Ridge Lane. In a further review of the ordinance itself, we would prefer to change that address to 190. And how that works is there's actually there's 3 single family dwellings on there used for short-term purposes. One of them, or the last one you get to on the right-hand side, is 126. However, the one that is being considered to be converted to a short-term rental is 190. So we thought it was appropriate to use the 190 address in the ordinance versus I think it was a 126 address in your package, or 127.
You said sewer, you mean septic?
Septic, I apologize, yes.
It's written in sewer.
Okay, I
So-
apologize. It is, I can confirm it is
It's
on wells
well.
and drain fields. Yes, sorry on the error. With that, I'd like to turn over the presentation to Mr. Mike Meads. And if needed, we can pull up the map or anything.
Mike Meads, 103 Kigersville Road, Lexington. Lodger Resort sounds a little overwhelming. It's there's no big lodge or resort or anything going on. It's a pretty quiet rental. The Rollenhagen family had set this up over 20 years ago, and the cottages that are there, the 3 cottages. Usually, there's 2 people, 1 to 2 people that occupy them. And so they're maybe just under 1,000 square feet. And so the barn is a 30 by 40 foot pole barn. And we had renovated the downstairs already for goat yoga. We did that till COVID started, about 2 years. And now we want to just get better use out of it and make it into another unit, a 4th unit.
Any questions?
Just not necessarily bringing this, but the 3 existing units are working as per your plan, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
they stay full.
They do stay pretty well occupied. This is we bought the property in November of 2017, and this year is a record year of revenue and occupancy too. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll open the public hearing.
There's no one physically signed up to speak. We still have 1 attendee. Check the chat. There are no open chats, and there are no open question and answers. And along with this one, and I should have said the other 3, we did not receive any written comments.
Okay. Then we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Any discussion among the board? Any motions?
Motion that we approve this special exception permit.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. All right, Ms. Ayers,
Yes?
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. All right, Mr. Suter,
Yes.
redistricting discussion.
Okay, so the board doesn't deal with this very often. Every 10 years after receiving new census data, localities are required, I say localities, counties are required to examine their magisterial districts and ensure that populations are balanced as possible. Here in Rockbridge in the 2000 and 2010 censuses, there was little need for change. I believe there was a change in 2000, and I don't believe there was a change in 2010. However, as noted in your board package, the 2020 data shows a wider spread of population deviation between districts, and is going to require adjustment of district boundaries. In the past, population data has been made available early in the calendar year after the census, and when I say in the past, 2000 and 2011. This year, data was not received. The final data from the state was not received until mid-September. I believe it was a result of a delay in trying to get accurate counts based on the challenges presented by COVID. So we only recently gotten the final data. There was some preliminary data later this summer, but we didn't get the other data until mid-September. Currently, the date by which redistricting is supposed to be complete is December 21st. There's a tremendous amount of work to do in this, mapping different options, as you can imagine, with the district boundaries. If you change a population in one district by moving a line, you're changing it in the other district, and so forth around the county. The population deviation across the 5 magisterial districts should be less than 5%. That is not a hard and fast rule, to my knowledge. However, that is the target that every locality or every county should be looking to achieve. According to 2020 data, Rockbridge's population is 22,740. And so the ideal, in the perfect world, ideal district population would be around 4,546 people. So 4,546 people per district. And I've shown there the deviation. Buffalo is down 188. Cars Creek is up 524. Natural Bridge is down 438. South River's up 117 and Walker's Creek's up 15. That's how that shakes out. So as you can see, Cars Creek and Natural Bridge districts have had the biggest change. Buffalo Creek and South River having smaller changes and Walker's Creek remaining fairly consistent. Our plans to work on potential options for boundary adjustments and bringing them back to you as soon as possible. I'm likely to have to, since we don't have the software do that, I'm likely to have to employ a little bit of outside help to do that. But that's our plan to bring you back some options. A public hearing on any proposed district change would be required prior to adoption of an ordinance setting new district boundaries. And I will also say that new district boundaries have to be not called out in what you'd say by meets and bounds, but called out by description, verbal description, written description from this intersection, thence with this road, thence with this stream, et cetera. So that's all got to be done. And this will also ultimately potentially impact precincts and potentially polling places. But you have to, there's certain rules that you have to follow when you're setting precincts. Not too few people, not too many people in a precinct. It's going to be a very tight schedule, given the requirement to have them done by the end of the year. It is our hope that the legislature may grant some additional time in this. I don't know if that's the case or not. I'm checking into it right now because I do know some other localities which are up against the wall or are challenged by this as well. So this was just an update to bring it to your attention. No action is requested at this time, and I will note too that I imagine you've been following the state process. I believe that's been sent to the Supreme Court. Or is it Supreme Court to send to? Yep. For the House and Senate boundaries.
Any questions for Mr. Sue?
The GIS mapping software we have won't or doesn't, it's not robust enough to.
There are add-on extensions that you get to put onto that. And I'll try to give you an example. If this is done by census block, so if there are 36 people on a census block and it sits in one district, you can't move part of that block. You move the block into another district, and this software gives a running total of what you just did. It gives you the new population in the two districts and the deviation, the standard deviation. So it's kind of a running total that allows you to do that. We certainly, our GIS, you could probably do it by hand, but it would take a lot of work. Whereas if you have an extension to do that, and a lot of our GIS applications are by extension.
So now that the boundaries have to be descripted or described. Are all census blocks boundaries described?
Not
So how?
not necessarily. Well, so census blocks and census tracts follow either natural or man-made features generally. So they'll follow a road or they'll follow a stream, they'll follow a mountaintop. But they typically aren't going to follow, say, the crest of a ridge, but sometimes they do. And so our description, the census blocks and tracts are not described in a written form that I know of anywhere. They just are what they are. But when they're put into magisterial districts or precincts, there has to be a written description. So you could say thence to a point you know.
Well, in my part I'm thinking of is Cars Creek and Walker's Creek touch on top of a ridge, currently.
Yeah, and that,
There's
and that
some-
is currently, I haven't seen it. I haven't, looked it up and read it, but certainly that is described in the recorded description of the
Yeah.
magisterial district.
And this, if we don't get an extension, we have 3 meetings left this year in order to get this done.
That was the next thing I was going to tell
So
you.
we might need to keep in back of your mind, there might be a 4th called meeting
It'd be a 2nd December meeting.
if we need to get this done.
Because with help, if we can sub this out, then we might be able to make the deadline. Anyway,
We could, but it does involve a public hearing and, public process to redistrict. Yep.
Yeah, our goal is to have it on time. So, but it might mean a little extra holiday work.
Well, and to my point, in seeing if there could be the potential for legislative action, our goal too is also, to have it on time, but also to do it right and to make
Right.
sure that we do it correctly.
and presumably there would be several different options, I would think.
Yes, you'd certainly hope. I mean, there's different ways to move things around.
Any other questions for Mr. Suter? All right, thank you, Mr. Suter. Keep us surprised.
Thank you.
Any board comments? The first meeting in November typically conflicts with the annual BACO meeting conference. So some years ago, the board began moving the first meeting in November from Monday to Tuesday and in the annual schedule adoption process. However, this year, the conference falls on the following Monday and there is no conflict. And the meeting could be held on Monday, November the 8th, should the board wish to move it. We simply need to ensure proper notification. So what's your feeling?
It would be fine with me if we moved to the 8th at Monday.
The Monday?
I think that that's less confusing for the public.
I think that's the consensus. Mr. McDaniel, do you have any problem with moving it to Monday?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Suter, if you can take care of that.
Sure.
And at this time, we have a motion
Yes,
for.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, yes, sir.
one quick thing. I just would like to apologize for my technical difficulties, and I appreciate all of your patience while I was trying to get online.
I don't think it was your fault, Mr. McDaniel, but we.
And I wasn't
appreciate it.
patient, so.
You're projecting very well, Mr.
And
McDaniel.
and also, as the elections are coming up, I would like to wish all the candidates good luck in our local elections.
Thank you, Mr. McDaniel. At this time, we have a motion for a closed session.
I move that the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors convene in closed session, discuss the following as permitted by the Virginia Code 2.2-3711A1, a personnel matter involving economic development for discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, and as permitted by Virginia Code 2.2-3711A3, discussion or consideration of a matter involving acquisition of real property for public purposes.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second. Ms. Ayers,
Yes?
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
And the chair votes yes. We are in closed session and do not anticipate any action.
No, sir.
No.
I will say, I would ask everybody just to hold tight while we figure out, make absolutely sure that we get
Right.
this set
But
up properly.
but we're not anticipating taking any action tonight.
No.
You're not going to find my house for a dumpster.
But you know what we're talking about.
Is it for sale? All right.
$1.
Come up here and look.
No. 143 Cash or check?
Yeah, cash.
Mr. Chairman, if we needed a pause, could we?
Yeah, we're in pause now, waiting for
Okay.
them to get, if you need to take care of some
So
business.
we'll
Yes, sir.
do- I need to go
Thank you for being quiet.
Yeah, the daughter was in this weekend, so I didn't push you. 2 hours away, and sometimes it's like, 2, 4 months before see her, so.
You can go that way though, right? She didn't mind you visiting.
That was canceled. Actually, Saturday we were supposed to be there, and then probably 2 weeks prior to that, we were supposed to be there, and they canceled both of those, and then when she canceled this one, she
Yes.
Both issues.
Oh.
That's what I'm thinking, just needs some thought.
We good,
You
Spencer?
ready?
We are good.
Okay.
I move that the board certify that in the closed meeting just concluded, to the best of each member's knowledge, nothing was heard, discussed, or considered except the two matters specifically identified in the motions to convene in closed session and lawfully permitted to be discussed as exempt from open meeting requirements under the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act cited in that motion.
Okay, so we have that motion. You have a second?
Second.
Second, okay, we'll certify. Ms. Ayers?
Yes?
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Now can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Have a second?
Yes?
Okay, Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
And chair votes yes, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.